Hi everyone, this is Linda, and we're going to create this little mobile. Now, those that have Premier+2 Basic, Premier+2 Extra, and Premier+2 Ultra can do this exercise. The only things the Basic cannot do is the part that's applied in the quilt block wizard. You're going to have to do a few different things, just a little bit different, but that's okay. We can work with that. So we're going to do Grandma's Garden, which is the top part of the mobile. Now, those with Ultra, I'm going to do another video on creating this in the Create module, which allows us to do some additional nice things. So I'm going to move this out of our way. And so the first thing we're going to do is change our hoop to the 240 by 150. Now, when you come in here, if you don't have this set up in your My Hoops, you're going to pick on your particular machine and then find the 240 by 150 hoop. Now, the 240 by 150 hoop, there's two of them. There's a large hoop and the designer jewel hoop. And the one we're going to use is the designer jewel hoop. It really doesn't matter. So if you've not already added this to your personal My Hoops, you can make sure that this is checked and it will add it to My Hoops. Now, the reason there's two of them is there was a design, the original large hoop did not have this. See this piece that's on the side? The jewel hoop does. Basically, the sewing area is exactly the same. So I'm just going to hit OK. And then the first thing we're going to do for those that have Extra and Ultra, we're going to go to the Wizards tab. We're going to pick on Quilt Block. We're going to pick on Outline Quilt Block Filled Inner Shape. I'm going to do next. I want to change the shape here from a square to number 2, which is the rectangle. Then my hoop size, or the size of my hoop, is 240 by 150. So I'm going to change side A, which is this one, to 240. And I'm going to change side B to 150. I want to make sure that include a cut line around my quilt block is not there. I don't need that. We're going to do next. Now I want to change this to an oval. So the shape I'm going to use is number 2, which is a circle initially, but we're going to change how wide it is. And the width of our hoop is 240 by 150 again, but we're going to make this just a little bit smaller. And I need to make sure that proportional is not checked. If I change that to 240, it's going to change it, not only the width, but it's also going to change the height. So make sure that's unchecked. I'm going to do 240. I'm sorry, we're going to do 230. So it's just a little bit smaller than the width of our hoop. And then this one, I'm going to make 140 instead of the 150. Again, proportional was not selected. We're going to hit next, and it's automatically going to go to stippling. Now I could change it and I could do horizontal, or I could do this. It's a great way to create those knockdown stitches if you want to do it, but we're just going to pick on the stipple. I'm going to click on options, so you have the different options in here. I could change how close my stippling is by making it 2.5, leaving it running, but because I'm going to be going through thickness, I probably want to change that stipple to about, or the length of my stitches to about a 2, and I just want you to see this. See how close that stippling is? Great for doing knockdown, but for what we're going to use, I don't want it quite that tight together. So I'm going to click on options again, and I'm going to change that back to the 5. The rest of it I'm leaving just the same. So now I've got this, looks like to me like it's a brain. It's just kind of one of those things. We're going to hit finish, and I now have this. Now, what happens is there's actually an additional stitch that's going to go all the way around this outside edge, and I don't want that there. I actually only want this part, the stippling part, and I need to get rid of those other stitches. So we're going to go to the Modify tab, and there's these stitches that are going all the way around here. Now, it's hard to see, so I'm going to get rid of my grid. Go to View, Show Grid, and we're going to remove it. And I'm going to go back to Modify. Now I want to go and get rid of these. So you're going to click on Box Select, and then click, hold, and drag a box around that space. See, I'm grabbing the stitches that are going straight across. I'm not touching on my stippling. And they see there's a box there. I'm going to hit Delete. And again, I'm going to come down here, do the same thing on this side, hit Delete. And I know it looks like those stitches are still there, but they really aren't. And I'm going to show that to you here in a second. And I hit Delete. So now what I want to do is I've got this done. I've got all those stitches gone. I'm going to go to the Frame tab, because we're going to put a frame around it. If you notice, there is no more stitches. So I'm going to come out here and see how nice and clean that looks. I'm going to add my grid back in just so I can actually have that, because it makes it easier for lining things up. Show my grid. And now I'm going to add a frame around the outside edge of this. So I'm going to frame. And the one I want is the oval. So this is actually an applique. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to change my margin to 0.0. I'm going to make sure nothing is grouped. Now, those that have the basic can do from this point forward. So you're going to grab this applique, and we're going to hit apply in a second. For those that have extra and ultra, you want to make sure that's selected. For those that don't and your margin is 0, it's just going to put it up to the outside edge. So we're going to hit apply. And what it does for those that have the stippling stitches, it looks at the outside edges left and right and puts it as close as possible as it can get. But I don't need it. I need it to be a little bit skinnier here. So I'm going to actually take, and I'm going to drag this down so it's inside the sewing area, and I'm going to drag this one down, or up and in, and it's inside my sewing area again. Now, one of the things you want to pay attention to is those green boxes that are on the outside edge. When I make it smaller, it's going to automatically take care of my stitch count and adjust my stitch count accordingly. Now, some of the other things you can do from this point, because this is an applique and they have my little green boxes, I'm going to right mouse click and I'm going to pick on applique fabric because I want to change the fabric. I just want to kind of see. I have something generally kind of close to what I maybe want. I could click on some of these. I just want to pick on quick color, and I'm just going to pick on a very light. I want to go pretty light. So that's a little salmony color, and that's okay. I could actually choose fabric, but we'll do that at another time. We're going to hit apply, and I'm going to do okay. So now I have that salmony looking color. It really makes everything stand out. So the other thing I can do is I can actually change how wide those stitches are on my satin line. So I'm going to go to satin line. And I actually maybe want to make this a 3.5 just because I'm going through so many thicknesses when I get through with this. And I'm going to make this a 5. I'm going to spread those stitches out just a little bit. And I'm going to do okay. So now it's just a little bit wider, and it's going to go through all those thicknesses because we're going to have tearaway stabilizer. Then you're going to have a piece of Peltex or craft felt, which is a very stiff kind of a felt. So it kind of keeps our stuff from bending a little bit. You might actually have a piece of batting in here too to give it a little bit more loftiness. Then the other thing you're going to have is regular fabric, cotton fabric up on top. So you want to make sure you've got lots of stuff. And then we're going to add to the back, we're going to add some more fabric to the back. So we want to make sure this is good and secured, and we're going to make sure that that satin stitch grabs everything. So now let's go and add our letters. We're going to go to the letter tab. Now, not everybody's going to have this, but pick on a font that you kind of like. This is Jingo 25 to 55. I kind of like that one for this particular instance. There's all kinds of them. This one happens to be in the retro category, but you'll have to go through those that have extra and ultra. Or extra and basic are going to see some that are shaded out, and those you can't get to. But these are the ones that you can, the ones that are actually color. So I'm going to close back out of that. And I have Grandma's Garden, which is what I want to put in here. I do Grandma's, hit enter or return, whichever one, and garden. And that gives me the 2 lines of information I want. I'm going to leave the size at about 25 millimeters, and we're going to change some of that, so that doesn't matter. We're going to just leave this at horizontal. I'm not going to put any curve to it. I'm just going to leave it just plain old horizontal. And I'm going to hit, I want to make sure nothing is selected. If I had this selected, it's going to put Grandma's Garden down here. And I don't want it, I want it to be in the center. So make sure nothing is selected by just clicking outside of the sewing area. We're going to hit apply. Now there it is. I need it to be a little bit bigger. And again, green boxes allows me to do some additional things. So I'm going to make this pretty big, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to kind of center it left to right. And make sure that when you're moving this, that you're actually having the 4 arrows. If you try to move it when it looks like this, it's going to move the rotation point of this particular box. And I want to make sure that's good. That's about where I want it. And that's close enough. Actually, I could actually leave it about there, and I could make the letters just a little bit longer. And then I have a spot that I can still put my eyelet there, and I can put some eyelets along here. So I'm going to leave it like that. Now I want to go to the border tab, and the border tab allows me to add these little eyelets. Now make sure that group is not selected again. That's over here on the left hand side, but this is the area we're going to concentrate on. Make sure nothing is selected. We're going to make repeats 1. Select motif, we're going to come in here and we're going to make sure group is Husqvarna Viking, category is A, utility stitches, stitch number is 43. So you just slide down until you find 43. It looks like a little eyelet. We're not going to do anything special with this. You could make it a triple if you wanted to. If you wanted to give it a little bit more sturdiness, you could do that. We're just going to leave it like it is for now. We're going to do OK. Nothing is selected. I'm going to hit apply. And there she is. I'm going to just move that right up here. Now you make sure that you have the 4 arrows when you slide this. And I'm going to change the color of this because I need that to be, so what happens is the software automatically assumes when you have a certain color blue that's going to be sewn out earlier than other things. And I need to make sure that this doesn't sew out of order. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to pick on one of the browns. Then the next thing I want to do is I want to make sure I want to do the same thing, but I want to do it down here. Now I could do a duplicate, or I could do Control C, Control V, copy and paste, but I'm just going to hit apply again. And I've now got this one, and I'm going, it doesn't really matter where it's at. If you had nothing selected, it would automatically put it in the center. And I'm going to tab through, so I got that again. So now I've got this one selected, and those that have extra can do this next step. Those with ultra, what you're going to have to do is you're just going to have to copy and paste or duplicate and put them in the spot down here at the bottom. But those with extra and ultra, you can actually come to the Encore tab. We're going to make sure that line is selected, and the line shape we want is going to be the one that looks like a small little smiley face, or the smile of a smiley face. We're going to make sure it's standard and we're not going to have it do the mirror image, but that doesn't make any difference for this particular thing. I only want 3 repeats. If you want 5, you could do more if you wanted to. I'm just going to leave it at 3. We're going to do preview. And again, this is just a preview. I'm going to take and make sure I have my 4 arrows, and I'm going to move it down to the general area of where I want it. And now I can actually take these and I can slide this out. Now I could actually take and slide these in closer together so that I had less of a smiley face or whatever you want to call it. But I'm going to leave it like this. I'm going to, once I hit apply, they are there. I'm going to go to the home tab. I want to combine those 3 eyelets so that they are one. I'm going to click on combine, then combine selected. So it only combines those 3 items. And so I've got that. I'm going to hit color sort. Now it's going to color sort them so they all are together. I'm going to double click and I'm going to pick on another brown. It doesn't really matter. I just want that to be a step and these to be a step. So let's watch this sew out. So I'm going to watch this sew. And it's going to sew onto your tearaway stabilizer. It's going to sew this placement line for us to lay everything down. So I'm going to let it get to that point. And then it's going to stop. Now at this point, you're going to lay your Peltex. You're going to lay some batting if you want it to have a little bit more fluff. And then you're going to lay your fabric on top. And that's then going to be our basis for everything else. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start sewing again, and it's going to go around. And when it stops again, you're going to stop everything. So when you're stitching this out, you're actually going to let it come to the stop, and then you're going to actually stop. You don't need to cut around the applique at this point. We can leave everything just as it is, but I don't want to sew out the satin stitches until later on in the process. So even though it's going to show that there, I don't want that part to sew. I want that stippling to sew. Then I want Grandma's Garden to sew. And when Grandma's Garden is done sewing, I want you to stop again before the eyelet gets sewn. So what we're going to do is we're going to now After Grandma's Garden is sewn, we're going to slide another piece of fabric up underneath. If you feel like you need another piece of Peltex to give it a little bit more stiffness, you can do that. We're going to slide another piece of fabric up underneath, and you're going to put the right side of the fabric closest to the bed of the machine and the wrong side of the fabric towards the stabilizer. Now, when you do that, we need to then go back to color number 1. So do color number 1 again. You're going to do through to the stop. Then you're going to let it do to the second stop. And when it's done with that stop, the second stop, you're going to take it off your hoop. Take it off your machine. Don't take it out of the hoop, please. You're going to cut around all of your fabric. You're going to cut around the outside edge, and you're going to cut around the back side, around the outside edge. Then let it do the actual satin stitch itself. Then I'm going to cancel out of here. So you're going to skip color number 2, color number 3. And you're going to do color number 4, which is going to be this eyelet, which is going to go through all layers of your fabric. Then you're going to do color number 5, which is those. Then you're all done. Take it out of your machine, take it out of your hoop, tear away the stabilizer, and you should be good to go. And that's basically all there is to it. But let's make sure we save this baby. So make sure you come up to Save As. Make sure you save it someplace where you can actually find it, and you can call it whatever you want. I'll call it Grandma's Garden. And I'm going to call it 2 just so it saves another one. Now, what's nice about saving the VP4, when I pull up the VP4, maybe I want to change where it says Grandma's Garden. I can actually tab through this and get to Grandma's Garden. And I want to make that change. I don't want it to be Grandma's Garden anymore. I want it to be Papa's Garden. So now I can actually come here, go to Properties, change where it says Grandma's Garden, hit OK. So I'm going to just put in Papa's Garden. And this time when you hit the second line, you have to hold your Shift key down and then hit Enter, and then Garden. And now I have it as Papa's Garden. And again, because it's green, I can still do this. And that's the advantage of that VP4 format, which is really cool. So now I want to do an undo, just so I get rid of that, so I don't have that one there. And I actually want to make sure I do my export so I can sew this out. And it's going to combine, it's going to color sort, and it's going to optimize my stitch length and do all those wonderful things. I'm going to do this. Make sure you are where you need to be to save this. Now, if you don't, you're not going to find it again. So I just wanted you to know that you want to make sure you do that. And it already has Grandma's Garden 2 exported. And I'm going to hit Export. And now I have it, and it's ready to go. Now, if you wanted to see, I could come up here and do Combine All, so you could actually see color number 1, color number 2, color number 3, color 4, and color 5. Thanks, and have a good day. I hope I see some. I'm going to do the flowers for the grandkids' names here in a little bit. Thanks.